Hello everyone, welcome to week 7 and 8, another combo video. This time my perfectly valid excuse is I was busy winning a World Series. Go Stros, baby. Took down the Red Sox, took down the Yankees, suck it Lawhorn, took down the Dodgers, suck it Puig, and now we're World Series champs. And I know what you're thinking, Brian, you're such a bandwagon fan. You've lived in Houston for like 2 months and now you got all this stuff and you're celebrating a World Series. Well, all I have to say to you, Mr. Cynical, is yes. Yes, I do deserve this World Series. I sat through a hurricane with the rest of Houston. I deserve this just as much. Let's get into the matchups. First up, Team Luebbe took down the Demarius Targaryens in a matchup of the only two people in the league who still live with their parents. The matchup came down to Monday night, which is unfortunate since the game was on past both of their bedtimes. Next, the Lovable Losers took down Team Autodraft. This matchup wasn't even fair and isn't worth talking about. The Magic Men avoided a name change with the win over the Straight Freaks this week and stayed relevant in the standings, winning Chad this week's Stain Abreast Award, presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants. Twin Peaks, where we think the girls at Hooters wear too much. Twin Peaks, because life is all about the view. In other news for this matchup, Stouty sat DeMarco Murray again for some reason, and, as I predicted, lost Homecoming King to Mitchell Phelps. Let's take another look at Stouty. The Playful Flurries were rewarded by the fantasy gods for sticking with Amari Cooper, who put up 33 points this week. Unfortunately, it was still not enough to take down the Bugs, and Jacob remains winless. There is hope, however, as Jacob plays Stouty and Corey, also known as the worst two teams in the league, in the next 2 weeks. The final matchup was a butts-on-butts showdown. Luckily for me, Ezekiel Elliott, the only good player on my dad's team, was suspended this week. Lol, just kidding. Our justice system supports domestic violence, and Ezekiel Elliott's unsuspension of the suspension of the unsuspension of his suspension left him free to abuse me in fantasy this week, as he scored more points in the first quarter than anyone on my team in a whole game. Alright, now it's time for our Week 7 mailbox. First up, Dear Brian, here's my resume requesting a spot in your fantasy league. I have 0 years of fantasy football experience, never watched a full football game, and don't know who the Texans are. Let me know if you need anything else. Your fellow intern, Brianna Sparks. Brianna was also the intern who, when asked about the Astros during the World Series, replied, "Who are the Astros again?" But honestly, Brianna, you still sound way more qualified than Jacob or Kevin ever was. Look out for an invite next year. Next up, Dear Brian, as you requested, here is a brief summary of our research on the hypoalgesic effect of swearing. Our research showed that swearing was effective in reducing both physical and mental pain. We found repeated use of the F word as the most effective treatment. Happy swearing, Stephen Atkins in Kingston. Wow, thanks guys. That research is really going to change the world. And I'm going to keep that in mind. If anything tragic ever happens, I'll know to just drop a couple F-bombs right away. Now let's get into the Week 8 matchups. First up, the Bugs took down the defending champs. No one to blame here but myself, as I had 84 points on the bench and could easily have won this matchup. Good news is my team is finally starting to look good due to the unbelievable performances by Deshaun Watson, who is elevating the play of DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, who have been the 1 and 2 wide receivers in the past 4 weeks. With him at quarterback, I may just be the favorite to win this year again.
Devastating news for the Texans and their rookie quarterback Deshaun Watson. Our insider Adam Schefter with us. Adam, what's the latest with Watson?
Deshaun Watson tore his ACL at practice today. He was running.
In equally depressing news, the Sellouts won again this week, after once again the entire team did nothing and Ezekiel Elliott went out of his mind. Good thing he is finally suspended for this week.
News. Ezekiel Elliott will play Sunday at home against the Chiefs. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals granted Elliott's request this morning for an administrative stay on his 6-game suspension, which will allow Zeke to play on Sunday.
Some good news for the playful Flurries, who finally won a game this week, although it barely counts since the team he beat was the Straight Freaks, who haven't won a game since September. This week, Stouty decided to keep his two highest scoring players on the bench. Stouty, we both sucked this week, buddy. In this week's ugliest matchup, Chad barely beat Team Auto Draft. Good news for Chad is after this win, he faces me next week, so he's bound to have a good week. And finally, some good news as Luebbe took down the lovable losers thanks to a dominant performance from their defense on Monday night. Unfortunately, as we know, these Monday night games take place after Luebbe's bedtime, and his mom does not budge, even for football. Luebbe is also this week's Coach's Spotlight. Michael Luebbe, known exclusively as Luebbe, never Michael, coach of Team All Luebbe'd Up, attended Thomas More College, where he studied nothing along with everyone else at Thomas More, because I'm pretty sure it's not even a real college. Some of his accomplishments include perfecting the ability to pitch nearly underhanded, winning a co-ed indoor soccer league with Stouty and I. Side note, he was the only player on the team to not score that year. Leading the league in points scored in a fantasy league last year, being the third best accountant in the league, and sharing a birthday with Jackie Chan. That's right, April 7th. Jackie Chan and Michael Luebbe. As you can see here, people born on April 7th are active and tend to live a healthy lifestyle as they involve themselves in vigorous exercise. That sounds about right for Luebbe. Down at the bottom, you'll see to keep stress levels low and ultimately benefit the body, patience would be an excellent skill to learn. That's good. Luebbe hasn't won the league ever, so I hope he's still patient. And meditating while in a warm bath or spa tub will help de-stress and relax. Honestly, that sounds great, Luebbe. I would try that right away. Now time for our Week 8 mailbox. First up, Dear Brian, our scouts have identified you as a potential impact player. As you are aware, our team sucks and we could really use your help next year. Please let me know if you are willing to use your 5th year of eligibility to help us out. We can even try to get the other team to wear flags. Thanks, Luke Fickle. P.S. I hear you can play both ways. We are definitely going to need that. Coach Fickle, you're right. You guys do suck, and you definitely need help next year, but I'm not sure I'm the guy to do it. I mean, sure, I've had a great flag football season this year, but our team still hasn't won a game since the first game of the season, and we've got mercy ruled like 5 times. Good news for the team, though, last week in our 6th game of the year, someone besides me actually caught a touchdown. It was a miracle. It kind of makes sense, though, because he's the other business intern. On that note, we also had a intern basketball game this week featuring the business interns versus the engineering interns. Final score, business interns 16, engineering interns 2. It really cannot get any more stereotypical. Next up, Dear Brian, congrats on your well-deserved World Series win. I was rooting for you the whole way. Maybe my team will be good enough to win the World Series one day. Anyway, hopefully you and I can celebrate a Super Bowl together this year too. Fly Eagles fly. Caw! Mike Trout. For those of you who may not know, Mike Trout actually grew up near Philadelphia and is a huge Eagles fan. In fact, he sent this series of tweets recently. And even though my fantasy hopes for this season are already dead, at least I have a decent football team to root for. See you guys next week.